Okay, so you want to cut through the noise, right? Understand what's really going on in the U.S.
Get the key takeaways, yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And delivered straight. Well, that's what we're aiming for today.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing a deep dive looking at a snapshot of recent events. We're specifically pulling from USA Today, May 19th, 2025.
Right.
And we're going to unpack the big shifts, political stuff, the economy,
International trade.
how people are reacting, and yeah, a few other notable things.
The mission is basically to give you the essential insights.
And connect the dots, make it stick.
Precisely. And looking at these reports, what jumps out is just how interconnected everything is. It's striking.
How so?
Well, you see these policy decisions, right? Made way up high.
Uh-huh.
And they're having real, tangible effects across different sectors. It's like a chain reaction.
Both here and globally.
Yeah, exactly. Both here at home and around the globe, we're seeing kind of the intended outcomes playing out, but also maybe some less anticipated consequences. And it's clear the public is really watching this unfold.
Paying close attention. Okay, let's start with the politics then. Unpack that side.
Sounds good.
So the reports point to President Trump's administration being, well, active. New policies.
Definitely act.
We're seeing new tariffs being introduced, for instance. That's according to Axios.
Great. That's a key one.
But it's not happening smoothly, is it?
Yeah.
There's mention of significant criticism
Yeah.
aimed at the administration's approach to labor rights and immigration. That's coming from Wikipedia sources.
Yes, those are major points of friction
And
mentioned.
these aren't just like think tank debates. They seem to be fueling actual protests, widespread ones.
Across the nation, yeah. Wikipedia highlights that too. Significant mobilization.
So when you put all that together, the policies, the criticism, the protests,
Yeah.
what's the core tension we should be focusing on? What should you be thinking about?
Well, what's fascinating, I think, is this fundamental balancing act, between different national goals.
Okay, like what?
Like, on one hand, the stated goal is boosting national security, strengthening the economy, using these policies.
Right, the official line.
But on the other hand, you've got these really substantial concerns being voiced about individual rights, about fairness in labor.
The potential downsides.
Exactly. And that raises a crucial question for you listening. How do we, as a society, weigh these competing things? Where's the right balance?
And the protests suggest?
Well, the widespread protests suggest that for a significant chunk of the population, the current balance feels off, tilted in a way they find undesirable.
Okay, interesting tension there. Let's shift gears slightly, look at the economy.
Right, the economic indicators.
The picture there seems, well, maybe a bit concerning. NPR is reporting a contraction in the U.S. economy.
Yes, that's a significant data point.
And the stock market seems twitchy.
Volatile.
Very volatile, yeah.
Which I guess makes a certain amount of sense, doesn't it?
Mhm.
All this uncertainty we just talked about, especially around trade.
Investors must be getting nervous about global supply chains and, what happens next.
Absolutely. If you connect this to the bigger picture, the slowdown, the market's ups and downs, they aren't just random events.
No.
They're likely a direct consequence of the instability from those trade policies we mentioned.
Because investors hate uncertainty.
Exactly. They really value predictability. It lets them make informed decisions, right, about where to put their money.
So when trade is up in the air,
It creates unknowns, future costs, market access. It makes risk assessment harder. So they might get cautious, pull back. And what's particularly interesting here, I think, is how this contraction might be hitting small and medium businesses harder.
Oh, why is that?
They just don't have the same cushions, the same buffers as the big corporations to absorb, say, tariff-related cost increases.
Right, less wiggle room.
Which could mean a more uneven recovery down the line. Something to watch.
Okay, and speaking of those trade policies, let's dig into the international side.
The global ripples.
Sounds like the U.S. has been pretty active imposing new tariffs on key trading partners.
Yes, the reports confirm that.
Trade Compliance Resource Hub mentions China, Canada, Mexico specifically.
Those are the big ones cited, yeah. Major partners.
But this isn't just the U.S. acting and everyone else taking it, is it?
No, definitely not.
These countries, they're pushing back.
Oh, yeah. Retaliatory tariffs on American goods, that's like the standard playbook in these trade disputes.
So tit for tat.
Pretty much. When one country slaps on duties, making imports pricier, the other countries often respond in kind to protect their own industries and, frankly, to apply pressure back.
Right. Create leverage.
Exactly. And the consequence, as the reports really emphasize, is significant disruption to global markets.
How disruptive.
Well, think about it. These tariffs can force businesses to totally rethink how they source things.
Their supply chains.
Yeah, companies that spent years building efficient cross-border supply chains suddenly face higher costs, or they might even need to move production.
Which is huge, logistically, financially.
Absolutely. Huge challenges. And this whole escalation raises pretty serious concerns about, the long-term health and stability of the global economy.
Okay, so we've got policy shifts, economic adjustments, international blowback. Now, how's the public taking all this back home?
Right, the public response.
It sounds like there's been a pretty significant surge in protest activity across the country.
A notable increase, yes.
And not just scattered stuff. There's this 50501 movement mentioned on Wikipedia, apparently organizing demonstrations in all 50 states. That seems, wow, that's a lot of coordination.
It is. It's a remarkable level of coordinated action, absolutely.
So what's driving it? What are they pushing for?
Well, what's crucial to understand, I think, are the core issues. As the reports indicate, these protests are mainly focused on...
Let me guess. Labor rights, immigration.
Bingo. Labor rights, immigration reform, and also protecting civil liberties.
The same areas where the administration faced criticism.
Exactly the same areas. So this widespread organized protesting, it suggests a really deep level of public concern.
And a demand to be heard.
A strong demand, yeah. For their voices to be heard and for policies that, better reflect their values. It's very direct feedback, citizen to government.
It is striking, that level of organization across the board.
It really highlights how deeply these particular issues are resonating with people right across the nation.
Okay, let's pivot slightly because, the news isn't just one story.
Always multifaceted.
Beyond the big political and economic narratives, that USA Today snapshot also covers other significant things.
Right.
We're hearing about really devastating storms, tornadoes hitting Kentucky and Missouri.
Yes, tragic news there.
Resulting in, tragically, over 20 deaths, according to NPR.
And a terrible loss of life.
And then, completely different area, a massive deal in telecoms.
Ah, yes, the merger.
Charter Communications and Cox Communications announcing a huge merger, $34.5 billion, Wikipedia says.
It is substantial consolidation, yeah.
So these different items, what do they tell us?
Well, these seemingly unrelated pieces of news really underscore something fundamental about the world, right?
Which is?
It's constantly changing, often in unpredictable ways.
Okay.
I mean, we can analyze political trends, economic patterns, but then unforeseen events happen, natural disasters, huge corporate deals, and they can have massive immediate impacts.
Right. The human cost of the storms is obviously paramount.
Of course.
And that merger could really reshape things for millions of people. Internet, cable access.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
How a large chunk of America gets online or watches TV.
So these just remind us.
They remind us that our focus on, say, politics and economics, it's just one slice, a snapshot of a much broader, more dynamic reality that's always in motion.
Okay, so let's just quickly recap then. In this deep dive into the USA Today, May 19th, 2025, we've looked at President Trump's new tariffs, the criticism around labor and immigration policies.
Fueling those nationwide protests.
Right. We also examined the reported economic contraction,
Right.
the shaky stock market, falling consumer confidence.
And connected that back to the trade uncertainties, the new tariffs on places like China, Canada, Mexico, and their responses.
Yeah, the retaliatory measures. Then we highlighted the big public reaction, those widespread protests, the 5501 movement, and also touched on that tragic severe weather in Kentucky and Missouri.
And the huge Charter-Cox merger in telecoms.
Right.
Exactly. And our goal really has been to equip you, the listener, with a clearer understanding
Of how these things connect.
Yeah, how these interconnected events work and what their potential implications might be. It's about going beyond just the headline.
To the underlying dynamics.
Precisely. Understanding how the different pieces fit together to create the current picture.
And look, as you keep following the news, because it doesn't stop, right?
Never does.
We hope this deep dive gives you some valuable context, a clearer perspective on these pretty significant developments.
It's definitely complex, definitely evolving, staying informed, staying engaged. It feels more crucial than ever.
Yeah.
Which brings us maybe to a final thought, something for you to mull over.
Okay.
Just reflect on how these big macro level things, politics, economics, social movements, how they ultimately trickle down, how they impact individual lives, the fabric of communities.
Like how trade tensions might affect prices at the store.
Exactly. Or how an economic slowdown could potentially affect job security where you live.
Or how protests actually shape policy.
Right. In what ways do these public movements actually shape the rules that govern all of us? Those are the kinds of connections.
Important ones to keep in mind.
Yeah. As you process the daily news and think about your own place in this dynamic landscape,